I got home early that day. No calls, no messages, just a gut feeling telling me to turn the car around and head back. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was that gnawing sense in my stomach that something was off. I had been sitting in my office, watching the clock tick, each second feeling like a waste of time. Finally, I told my boss I was not feeling great, grabbed my keys, and walked out without another word. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday, nothing unusual. But the moment I pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. The curtains in the upstairs bedroom were half drawn. That was not like Emily. She loved sunlight, always said it made the house feel alive. The porch light was off, even though she always left it on when she expected me home after dark. I turned off the engine and sat there for a second, listening. The neighborhood was quiet, as it always was in the afternoon. A dog barked down the street. A lawnmower buzzed somewhere in the distance. But inside my house, nothing. No television, no music, just silence, too much of it. A cold feeling spread in my stomach. I grabbed my briefcase, stepped out of the car, and shut the door softly, like I was afraid to wake something that should not be disturbed. My shoes crunched on the gravel as I walked up the steps. My fingers wrapped around the doorknob before I even realized I had reached for it. And that is when I saw them. A pair of heavy, mud-caked work boots. Big, worn down, the kind a man who worked with his hands would wear. They were sitting right next to Emily's sneakers, lined up neatly, like they belonged there. But they did not. For a moment, my brain tried to come up with an explanation. A repairman? No, I had not scheduled anything. A friend? No, Emily did not have any male friends who would drop by unannounced. I stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of lavender, the same detergent Emily always used. But beneath that, something else. Something musky. Something that did not belong to me. My pulse pounded against my ribs. My jaw locked tight. Then I heard it. A creak upstairs. A soft thud. A shift of movement. I did not need to see it to know what was happening. But my feet moved forward anyway, dragging me toward the stairs like I had no control over them. Each step up felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My grip on the railing was so tight, my knuckles turned white. At the top of the stairs, I hesitated. The bedroom door was not shut all the way, just open enough for me to see inside. And what I saw burned into my brain like a brand on flesh. Emily, naked, tangled in my sheets with another man. His arm draped lazily across her stomach, his back to me, muscles slick with sweat. Her dark hair fanned out across the pillow, eyes closed, lips parted like she was lost in some dream where I did not exist. For a second, I could not breathe, could not think. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd built my life around, crumbled in an instant. And then the rage hit me. Hard, fast, a tidal wave of fury I did not know how to contain. My hand shot out, grabbing the first thing I could reach, a framed wedding photo hanging by the door. Our wedding photo, the one where we were grinning like fools, thinking we had our whole future ahead of us. I ripped it off the wall and hurled it at the bed. Glass shattered. The frame broke apart. Emily's eyes flew open. For a moment, she just stared at me, frozen in shock. The guy, this thick, sweaty piece of garbage, grunted, sitting up, blinking like a man waking from a deep sleep. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Emily scrambled for the sheets, yanking them over her like that would somehow fix things. Wait, she started, her voice shaky. I did not let her finish. I did not want her excuses. I did not want to hear a damn word. I turned and walked out, fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. My vision blurred, my body pulsing with something raw, something dangerous. I did not know where I was going. I had no plan, but I knew one thing. Whatever life I had before was gone. I barely remember getting outside. 1 second, I was standing in that godforsaken bedroom, staring at my wife and that man, and the next, I was storming through the front door, my fists shaking. My pulse was so loud, it drowned out the sounds of the world around me. The wind, the distant traffic, even the neighbor's television playing through an open window. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to get the hell away before I did something I would regret. My feet hit the pavement. Fast. Hard. I did not pay attention to where I was going. The only thing running through my mind was the image of her. Emily, the woman I trusted, the woman I build a life with, writhing in bed with some stranger like I was nothing, like I had never even mattered. I felt sick. Maybe I should have seen it coming. Not like this, not this blatant, but deep down I knew something had been wrong for a while. I just did not want to face it. And now I had no choice. I did not know how long I walked. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. My mind was a mess, my fist still trembling, my throat dry as hell. But eventually I stopped, just stood there, staring at the cracked sidewalk, trying to breathe through the fire in my chest. And then I heard it. My name. I turned, slow, already knowing who I would see. Emily stood on the sidewalk, barefoot, wearing only a thin robe. Her hair was a mess, her face flushed. She looked frantic, desperate, like she actually thought she could fix this. Wait, just stop, she pleaded, rushing toward me. I did not move, did not say a word, just watched her come closer, bare feet slapping against the pavement. She hesitated, her eyes darting across my face, searching for something, understanding, maybe, a chance. But all she found was the cold stare of a man who had lost everything. I can explain, she stammered. Explain? Explain what? Explain why she let another man into my bed, into my home? Explain why she thought I would not find out? A bitter laugh escaped me. I shook my head. Please, she tried again, reaching for me. I did not mean for this to happen. My body went stiff. I forced myself to breathe, to keep my hands at my sides. You did not mean for it to happen. I repeated, voice low and sharp. She flinched. No, I swear it was not. Her words caught like she could not find the right ones. Because there were none. But she kept trying. It was a mistake, she whispered. I was lonely, and you had been so distant, and I was not thinking. I felt something snap inside me. Distant? I had worked my ass off for years to give her the life she wanted. Long hours, late nights, sacrifices she never even noticed. And now, she wanted to blame me? She must have seen the shift in my face because she stepped back, clutching the robe tighter around her. I did not mean for it to happen, she whispered again. It was just a moment of weakness, right? I exhaled slowly, my fingers flexing at my sides. I could have yelled at her, could have called her every name I could think of. But what was the point? She knew what she did. I knew what she did. There was no fixing this. I took a step forward. She held her breath. I leaned in just slightly and said, "Go back inside." She blinked. "What?" "Go back inside." I repeated, voice like ice. "Go back to him." Her face crumpled. For a second, she looked like she might cry. I did not care. Not anymore. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, shivering in the cold. I did not look back. Not when I heard her step toward me. Not when I heard the door creak open, telling me she had finally gone back inside to him. I just kept walking. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting everything in gold and orange. I barely noticed. My mind burned with rage, with the memory of her, with the realization that the life I thought I had was nothing but a lie. And there was no going back. Had she always been like this? Had she always been the kind of woman who could lie to my face, betray me without a second thought? Or had she changed slowly, little by little, until she was someone I did not even recognize? Until I was nothing more than a stranger she happened to live with? I did not know. And the truth was, I was not sure I even wanted to. I reached the end of the street and turned left, following the cracked sidewalk that led toward downtown. I did not have a destination, no plan, just the need to keep moving, to put as much distance between me and that house as possible. But distance did not stop the memories. It did not erase the image of Emily in my bed, tangled up with another man. The way her face twisted when she saw me standing there. The way she scrambled for the sheets like she could hide what she had done, like it mattered. Like it was not already too late. A car rolled by, its headlights flickering across my face. I barely noticed. I was not even sure how long I had been walking until I found myself standing in front of the gas station, the neon lights humming in the early evening air. My throat felt raw, my body aching with the tension that I had not released. I stepped inside. The clerk barely glanced up from the magazine he was flipping through behind the counter. The place smelled like burnt coffee and motor oil. The tile floor was streaked with dirt, marked by the boots of men who had passed through before me. I wandered down an aisle, stopping in front of the refrigerators. My reflection stared back at me through the glass. And for the first time, I really looked at myself. I looked like hell. My shirt was wrinkled, my tie loose, my hair sticking up from where I had run my fingers through it too many times. My eyes hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left nothing but a shell. I yanked open the door, grabbed a bottle of water, and headed to the counter. The clerk rang me up in silence. I swiped my card, grabbed my drink, and walked back out into the evening air. I twisted off the cap, took a long sip, and leaned against the brick wall of the gas station, staring into the fading daylight. My mind would not shut off. I could go back. I could walk through that front door, drag that bastard out of my bed, and throw him onto the pavement. I could scream at Emily, demand answers, demand justice. But what would that do? Would it fix anything? Would it erase what I had seen? No, it would not change a damn thing. I pulled my phone from my pocket, stared at the screen. No missed calls. No messages. Nothing. Of course. She had begged me to stop, to listen. But now that I was gone, now that I had left, she had nothing to say. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around the phone. I could call someone. A friend. A co-worker. But who? Who the hell was I supposed to turn to with this? Hey man, my wife just got caught screwing another guy in our bed. Got any advice? No. No one needed to hear this. No one needed to know how pathetic I was. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and tilted my head back, staring at the sky. The last streaks of orange were disappearing, swallowed up by the deep blue of night. I did not want to go home. I did not want to sleep under the same roof as her, breathe the same air. But I had nowhere else to go. And that was the worst part. I had built my life around her. Around us. And now, there was no us. Just me. And I had no idea what the hell to do next. I stood there against the gas station wall for what felt like forever. The condensation from the bottle of water dripped down my fingers, but I barely noticed. The world around me kept moving. Cars pulling in, people coming and going, but it all felt distant, like I was watching it happen from the other side of a window. I should have felt something. Shock, heartbreak, devastation. Instead, all I felt was rage. Hot and steady, sitting low in my chest like an ember that refused to go out. I kept seeing it, over and over. The way she looked when I walked into that room. The way the sheets shifted, the way his back flexed as he sat up. The way she clutched the blankets like a coward. Like I was the intruder. I clenched my jaw, flexed my fingers. I had walked for nearly an hour, and it had not helped. It had not dulled the fire inside me. It had not erased what I saw. It had not quieted her voice in my head, making excuses. It just happened. Like she had tripped and landed on top of him. Like it had been an accident. She had chosen this. She had chosen to lie to me. To betray me. To bring another man into my bed. And now what? She expected me to just move on? Pretend it never happened? No, that was not going to happen. I pushed myself off the wall and took another sip of water before tossing the half-empty bottle into a nearby trash can. I could not stand still. Not when my mind was racing. Not when my body was still buzzing with the kind of anger that did not fade. I started walking again, this time with purpose. I did not know how I ended up in front of a bar. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was just the only place that made sense when your entire world had just gone up in flames. It was a small dive bar, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. The kind of place where the lights were dim, the air smelled like spilled beer and cigarettes, and no one asked questions. Perfect. I stepped inside. The door creaked as it swung shut behind me. The place was nearly empty. Just a few guys hunched over drinks at the bar, a couple whispering to each other in a corner booth. No one looked up. No one cared. Even better. I took a seat at the bar and nodded at the bartender. "What can I get you?" he asked, wiping down a glass. "Whiskey." "Neat." He poured without hesitation, sliding the glass across the counter. I wrapped my fingers around it, staring at the amber liquid for a moment before knocking back a sip. The burn hit instantly, sharp, unforgiving. Exactly what I needed. I sat there, nursing my drink, my mind still spinning. I thought about going home, about facing Emily, about looking her in the eyes and seeing whatever twisted version of regret she had to offer. But what was the point? Nothing she said could change what I saw. Nothing she did could undo it. And yet, There was a sick part of me that wanted to hear it, that wanted to watch her squirm, that wanted to see her try to explain herself, to make her understand just how badly she had screwed up. I took another sip of whiskey, my fingers tightening around the glass. And then, before I could think twice, I pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, past old friends, past coworkers, past names that meant nothing right now. Then I saw hers. My wife. I hovered over her name, my thumb twitching. I should not call. I knew I should not call. But the anger inside me was not done yet. I tapped the screen and pressed the phone to my ear. It rang once. Twice. Then she picked up. Hello. Her voice was shaky, uncertain. Good. I said nothing. I let the silence stretch, let her feel the weight of it, let her sit there wondering why I had called. Are you there? She asked after a moment, her voice barely above a whisper. Still, I did not speak. Because what was there to say? That I hated her? That I wanted to erase every memory of her from my life? That I wished I could go back in time and never lay eyes on her? Or did I want to ask why? Why him? Why our bed? Why throw everything away like it meant nothing? But none of those questions mattered anymore. I took a slow breath, my fingers tightening around my glass. Then, finally I spoke. I saw everything. A sharp inhale on the other end. A quiet, broken gasp. I hung up before she could say another word. Because I did not need to hear her lies. Not tonight. Not ever. I stared at my phone, my thumbs still hovering over the screen, half expecting it to ring again. Half expecting her to call back, desperate to explain, to beg, to try and twist the knife in a different direction. But nothing happened. No call. No message. Nothing. It was almost worse than if she had. I set my phone down on the bar, exhaling slowly through my nose. The bartender glanced my way, but did not say anything. Smart man. I knocked back the rest of my whiskey, feeling it scorch its way down my throat, but it did not dull the fire burning inside me. Nothing could. She knew. She knew I had seen her. Knew I had watched her betray me in the most disgusting, shameless way possible. And now what? She was waiting for me to calm down, waiting for me to come home, so she could turn on the tears and tell me it did not mean anything. I could already see it. She would be sitting on the couch, hands twisting in her lap, her voice trembling as she told me it was a mistake, that it was just a moment of weakness, like she had not let that man into my house, like she had not taken him to our bed, like she had not chosen to do it. I gritted my teeth, my fingers flexing around the empty glass. Another? The bartender asked. I should have said no. I should have stood up, walked out of that bar, and figured out what the hell I was going to do next. But instead, I nodded. He poured. I drank. And still, the fire inside me would not burn out. I do not know how long I sat there, staring at the bottles lining the shelves, listening to the low hum of voices around me. I was not drunk, not yet, but I was floating in that space just before it. That place where the edges of your rage blur, but the cause of it still sits heavy in your chest like a weight you cannot shake. I had spent years building my life with that woman. Years working, sacrificing, making sure she had everything she needed. And now I was sitting alone in a bar while she was probably back home, curled up in my bed, pretending she was the one suffering. The thought made my hands clench into fists. I needed to do something. I could not just sit here, letting the anger eat me alive. I grabbed my phone again, scrolling through my contacts. I was not sure what I was looking for. A distraction? A reason not to go home? Someone to remind me that I still existed outside of her? Then my eyes landed on a name I had not thought about in a long time. Nick. I hesitated. We had not talked in months. Maybe longer. Not because of anything bad, just life. I had gotten caught up in work, in my marriage, in making sure everything was perfect. Perfect. What a joke. I exhaled sharply and tapped his name. It rang twice before he picked up. Holy hell. Nick's voice came through the speaker, surprised but amused. Did someone die? Or did you just forget I existed? A short, humorless laugh slipped from my lips. Not yet. There was a pause. You sound like hell, man. Feel like it too. Nick did not ask questions. Not right away. He never had been the type. Where are you? He asked. Westwood Bar off 8th. I'm 20 minutes out. He hung up without another word. That was the thing about Nick. He never wasted time on nonsense. If I called him and said I needed him, he showed up. No questions. No hesitation. And right now, I needed someone who was not going to look at me with pity. I shoved my phone back in my pocket and signaled the bartender for another drink. 20 minutes. I could wait. Nick showed up in 15. I heard him before I saw him. The heavy thud of boots against the wooden floor, the way the air in the room shifted as he walked in like he owned the place. He had not changed. Still broad-shouldered. Still carrying that quiet, effortless confidence that made people take notice. His sharp eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. His face shifted, narrowing slightly as he made his way over. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, dropping onto the stool next to me. "You look like you crawled out of a grave." "Feel like it, too." He snorted, waving at the bartender. "2 beers." The bartender nodded and grabbed them from the fridge. Nick turned back to me, more serious now. "What happened?" I did not answer right away. Did not know how to put it into words. But then it just came out, sharp and bitter. "My wife is screwing the plumber." Nick blinked. Then, without hesitation, he grabbed my empty whiskey glass and downed the last drops like he was the one who needed a drink. "Well, hell. Yeah." The bartender set 2 beers in front of us. Nick grabbed his, took a long sip, and set it down with a slow exhale. "You want me to kill him?" His tone was so casual, so matter-of-fact, that I almost laughed. "No. Damn shame. Would have done it for free." I shook my head, staring down at my drink. "Not worth it." Nick leaned back in his seat, tapping his fingers against the bar. "You gonna divorce her?" The question hit harder than I expected. Divorce. I had not even let myself think about that yet. Would I? Could I? Did I want to? I should. I knew I should. There was no coming back from this. No apology that would fix what she did. No way to erase what I'd seen. But the idea of signing those papers, of untangling our lives after so many years. I took another sip of beer, swallowing hard. I do not know. Nick watched me, waiting. I could feel his eyes on me even as I stare at my phone, the numbers on the screen confirming what I had just done. Every cent from our joint account was now in my personal one. The account we had shared for years. Empty. Cold. Maybe. But fair. She did not deserve a dime of my money. Not after what she had done. Nick let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "Damn, that is brutal. She deserves worse," I muttered, slipping my phone back into my pocket. And I meant it. I was not about to fund her next mistake. Was not going to let her sit in that house, surrounded by everything I had worked for, while she cried her fake tears and played the victim. Speaking of the house, I pulled up the security app. She had never cared about setting it up, never bothered to learn how it worked. That had always been my job, and now it was going to work in my favor. The live feed flickered on, and there she was, sitting on the couch, hunched over, her robe pulled tight around her. Her face was buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking slightly. Alone. No sign of him. Good. Nick leaned over, peering at my phone. "She crying?" "Looks like it." He snorted. "She should be." I stared at the screen for a long moment, watching her. A part of me, the stupid part, wanted to feel something. Pity, regret, sadness. Something to remind me that I had once loved this woman, that I had spent years of my life building something with her. But I felt nothing, just a steady, burning rage that had settled into my bones, making itself at home. I tapped the screen, scrolling through the security settings. "What are you doing?" Nick asked, amused. "Changing the codes." Nick let out a laugh, low and sharp. "Oh, that is cold, man." I did not stop. I reset the front door lock first, then the garage, then the security system itself. She would not be able to turn it off, would not be able to get back inside if she left. She had already made herself comfortable in my house with another man. Now, she could figure out how to live without it. "Brutal," Nick said again, shaking his head. But I could tell he approved. I turned off the feed and slipped my phone back into my pocket. "Let's get out of here," I muttered, tossing a few bills onto the bar. Nick grinned, standing up. "Where to?" "Anywhere but home." Because that was not my home anymore. Not with her in it. Not after tonight. She had her phone next to her, the screen lighting up every few seconds. Probably waiting for me to respond. Probably hoping I would come back. I smirked, then tapped the settings button on the app. One click. That was all it took to lock her out. I changed the security code, revoked her access, and disabled her ability to unlock the front door from her phone. Nick watched over my shoulder, shaking his head in amusement. Ruthless. She made her choice, I said simply, slipping my phone back into my pocket. Now, she had nothing. No money. No security. No way to call me and beg for another chance. And it still was not enough. I drummed my fingers against the bar, my mind racing. She does not work, I muttered. I paid for everything. She has no way to take care of herself. So let her sink, Nick said. Let her figure out what it feels like to need you and not have you. I exhaled slowly. I could. I should. But part of me wanted to see it with my own eyes. I want to go back there to watch her crumble in real time. I should go home, I said finally. Nick arched a brow. You sure? I nodded. Not to fix anything. Just to finish it. He grinned. Then let's go. The drive back was quiet. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, my jaw clenched. Every mile that passed, my heartbeat got steadier. Slower. More focused. I was not angry anymore. I was ready. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was nearly midnight. The house was dark, except for the dim glow of the living room lamp. She was still inside. Through the window, I could see her pacing, checking her phone over and over. She had realized she was locked out of the accounts. She was panicking. Good. I stepped out of the car, slamming the door behind me. Nick leaned against the passenger side, arms crossed. You want me to come in? I shook my head. This is my mess. He nodded. I'll wait. I walked to the front door, pulling out my keys. When I pushed it open, she turned. And the moment our eyes met, I saw it. Fear. Not just guilt. Not just regret. Actual, genuine fear. She had finally realized what she had done. She had finally realized that she was not in control anymore. I shut the door behind me, taking slow, deliberate steps forward. She swallowed hard, wrapping her arms around herself like she was cold. I did not think you would come back. I did not respond. Just stared at her. She shifted on her feet, licking her lips. I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But do not. She flinched. I was not interested in her excuses. I was not interested in her. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, tapped a few buttons. A second later, her phone screen lit up with a notification. She hesitated, then reached for it, her hands shaking. When she read the message, her breath caught. Her eyes darted to me, wide with disbelief. You filed for divorce? I did not answer. I just smiled, because it was not just any divorce filing. I had made sure it was messy. No settlement. No spousal support. Nothing. She was getting nothing. And as she stood there, staring at the screen like her entire world had just shattered, I finally felt good. Finally felt free. I turned toward the stairs, heading for the bedroom. You have a week to move out, I said over my shoulder. After that, I changed the locks. She did not say a word. I did not look back, because she was not my problem anymore.